I'm pretty sure we're live.
How will we
I'm trying
know?
a new feature. I'll know because it's there. One second. It's starting. I'm trying a new way to go live. Oh, we're live. Amazing. Hi, everybody.
Hey! Hello.
Welcome. It's so great to have you here on my YouTube channel. I'm actually taking a field trip today to my friend Lynn Preston's house. Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
So Lynn is an incredible friend of mine, a really wonderful therapist, and I would say one of the wisest focusers in the world. Yeah, we're here to have a focusing conversation.
We are, yes.
And so we have a special guest with us tonight who will introduce themselves in just a moment. But first, I just wanted to introduce Lynn and share a little bit about what we've been up to. Mm-hmm. For those of you who aren't tuned in live and who are checking this out later, definitely check out the comments, the description right below this video, where we'll have some links to other videos we've done. We've been working behind the scenes with my personal sort of Patreon community on patreon.com/Zach Valenti. We've been sort of testing and tuning and just having more and more conversations together. Anything you want to say before we get started about yourself, what focusing is, and what we're up to this evening?
Well, I think we have a little conversation there about what a focusing conversation is, and I can say just very briefly that focusing is a way of getting in touch with what is just emerging for you that you haven't thought yet. And this is a conversation, but it's a guided conversation. So I'm going to be sort of a helper and listener and a bit of a guide in this conversation. I'm saying that because the word conversation is usually saved for two people equally listening to each other. And these conversations are more my sort of facilitating the the discovery of another person, which I love to do.
Awesome. Well, without further ado, I'm going to hop over there into the control seat and welcome our special guest in, who is currently on mute, so you aren't able to hear them, but we'll be right there.
I heard you.
We already have terrible technical difficulties. Sorry, everybody.
Well, I can chat a little bit while we're having that, and I want to say that this field trip is to my loft in downtown Manhattan, and many people have watched different workshops and talks that I've given in various places of the world, and many of the people say, "What? You actually do therapy in this loud space?" And you could maybe see these windows behind me. I'm right on the main street of Houston Street, but it's also very cozy and lovely here too, as well as being a very city kind of place.
Okay, so now that it's fixed, I'm going to fix it. The audio's been fine, but the video's been a little weird. I'm going to introduce our guest. Hello and welcome to everybody live really quick. Ronnie Gosh, Fractal Sparrow, hello, welcome. Claudia Elbridge, so great to see so many familiar faces and so many new people. Okay, I'm going to bring in our guest. Welcome.
Hi, happy to be here.
And before we get too far underway, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and just sharing yourself with the community.
Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Leslie. I'm from New York. I've been attending and seeking counseling and self-help on and off throughout the entirety of my life for various reasons. And now that I'm kind of entering the adulthood life, I'm trying to kind of take the reins and kind of fix problems before they really are problems. And a lot of that has been very self-guided, but I came across this opportunity, so I decided to jump in and see what would happen.
Wow, very brave.
A major thing that I've been sort of struggling with and struggling to accept about myself is I've always had these patterns of very intrusive thoughts that are very, very dark and very unsettling. And while I know intellectually that I don't always have to accept that these thoughts are me, there's a big part of me that's always felt like I'm thinking these thoughts, and that must mean I believe these thoughts, and that must mean I'm a bad person. And I, especially in the moment, I kind of lay on very heavy. I don't always know how to internalize the fact that the thoughts are just thoughts and they don't necessarily reflect me, because there is that doubt, and I don't know how to divorce myself from the thoughts that just pop into my head.
Yeah. So there's a sort of conflict between you and these thoughts, and you want to divorce them. You don't want them to reflect on you. And then you're worried about them, like, well, why am I having these thoughts, and do I really believe them, and what are they here for?
Yeah, exactly. And I spent a long time trying to sort of suppress these thoughts and push them away and sort of think, if I don't think these thoughts, if I don't dwell on them, they'll go away. And that hasn't worked. And there is that thought of, I can't push them away if I can't silence these thoughts. Does that reflect on me? Is that just part of who I am? These dark thoughts that upset me and disgust me, but I'm still having them. And I worry about what that means about me as a person.
Yeah, like you're responsible for them somehow, but they don't seem like they're coming from you. They don't really reflect what you think or what you want to be about, and yet you can't silence them. You can't, sort of like having a kid that is acting up, and you're thinking, oh my God, that's not how I raised this kid, but yet you can't divorce your kid, and you can't shut the kid up. Right?
Yeah, that's exactly how it is. And a lot, not all, but a lot of my intrusive thoughts are very tied into my anger and my rage, and sometimes what feels like should be just a mild concern, or the core of that thought might not be the worst thought, but the way it comes out is very, very harsh and very aggressive and even very violent, and that's very upsetting to me, because the core of the thought may not be the worst thing, but the way it just sort of manifests in this very violent ways is really what concerns me, because I don't want to, and I don't want to consider myself to be an angry, violent person, but these thoughts are there.
Yeah. So it's like having the kid that's having a tantrum, or very angry, upset kid. But it's interesting that the core of these thoughts isn't something that's so upsetting. It's the way that the thoughts come. It's the feelings, really, of the anger and the violence and the rage that comes from this part of you.
Yeah, and a lot of the thoughts in and of themselves, if they weren't so angry and violent, I would be okay with.
Yeah.
Like for example, my brother has asthma, so when we're around parties, or we're just out in the park, and externally I'll, ask someone, please don't smoke, my brother has asthma. But internally, I just have these very violent thoughts and these violent images in my head of, grabbing that cigarette out of their hands, or attacking or lashing out. And that's not what I want to do, and that's not what I do. It's not who I want to be, but I can't shake that thought, and I don't know how to take that rage out of what is a reasonable concern.
But actually what you say to the person is the way that you want to say it. But this part of you, is it okay to call the thoughts a part of you? Do you think of them as a part of you, or do you?
I feel as though they are, but I don't want them to be, because nine times out of 10, I do kind of, I separate the thought from the action. So externally, I'll take the reasonable course of action. I'll just ask someone to not do something that's upsetting me, or, in a very communicative way. And part of that is the fact that I have been, seeking counseling and self-help for so long in my life. But I worry that because I have these thoughts and they're so aggressive and split second, that I might relapse into lashing out, into being that angry, violent person that I don't want to be.
Yes.
And I don't know if there's a way to turn it down, or if it's even healthy to try to repress the thoughts.
Yes. Yeah, I really get the dilemma that even though you don't act on the thoughts, on the aggression, it still feels like, well, what if they take over, and you can't silence them or make them calm down, and so it feels like, well, maybe I'm really an angry, rageful person, or what if that takes over?
Yeah, that's definitely a fear that I have, in terms of the rage and the violence that I know is that I'm capable of, and that's something that I've worked really hard to control over the years. But I'm always terrified that something's going to break, and I'm just going to unleash anger where it doesn't belong, or where it's not called for. And I don't know how to channel rage that I'm not feeling into something better and more productive, because I'm afraid that, for all that I've done in terms of trying to take that rage and put it where it can be expressed in a more healthy way, I'm always afraid that, my efforts aren't enough, and that I haven't done good enough to take those issues and fix them.
Yeah. Again, like the parent who's worked so hard to control the child, to teach the child, to manage the child, but the child is still terribly upset, terribly angry, and this feeling like you don't want to be identified with those thoughts, with that one.
Yeah, exactly, because I feel like I have, just as a person, I'm so much more than just this anger and this rage. But I also know that if that dam ever breaks and the floodgates are down, that could impact me very negatively, depending on where I am and who's on the other side of that rage. I know I've definitely lashed out in anger, and I've hurt people, and I've cut ties, I've burned bridges, and that's not something that I want to do again. And on the one hand, I do intellectually know that I should be proud of myself for taking the steps that I've taken to not be that angry, violent person. There's an emotional part of me that thinks, but you still have these feelings, and what you've done isn't good enough because you're still capable of this anger. And I don't know how to marry the idea that I have anger and that anger is a part of me with the idea that it's okay to continually work on it, that it may never be fixed, but I can always take steps to make it better. But I fear that that's not good enough.
Yeah. So the first choice would be to divorce these thoughts. And then when you can't silence them, can't get rid of them, because they're connected to you, then you want to marry the idea that, or the understanding that you've done so much to grow and to act in the world in a positive way, and to channel your anger in a way that it doesn't hurt people. But that doesn't seem good enough. It's sort of like, well, if you have this, then there's something bad about you.
Yeah,
and something scary, because the dam could break and you could be violent and angry.
Yeah, I think part of that floodgate feeling sort of is because a lot of my anger is so externally focused at different factors and aspects and just things that have happened in life. And because I don't feel safe expressing that externally, or it's not the best idea to express it externally, I think sometimes instead of letting that anger out, I internalize it, and it sort of goes into myself, and it feeds into these thoughts, and it's sort of stuck in a loop. So I think it's I'm very drawn to the imagery of that anger sort of being a child with a temper tantrum, because it is something that needs to be dealt with, but doesn't necessarily need to be babied in a way.
It needs to be dealt with, but not just babied. But there's something about that image that really speaks to you, that it's a child that is having a tantrum and very upset that you can't calm down. I feel like I'm the person that the parent and the child maybe are coming to see me, and maybe I need to get to know you and you, Leslie, and also get to know this very angry child and know something about what's upsetting her so much.
Yeah, because sort of the idea with a child with a temper tantrum, there are ways to deal with it where maybe in that moment that child is having the tantrum and they've already started, but there are ways where you can kind of teach the child that, yeah, you could throw a tantrum, but that's not what's going to solve the problem. With parenting in general, and continuing with that parent-child metaphor, there's so many things where it's long-term, constant teaching and setting the standards of this is how you as a child should behave to get what you want and to express your feelings. And it's okay to be upset, but it's not okay to yell and throw things.
Right. So you're trying to be this good parent that's sort of really structuring for the child and teaching the child. But I'm wondering if the child is trying to teach you or show you or say something to you, what we would learn from the child. You know, what the child is desperately trying to maybe get your attention or hold out for her point of view, for her truth, for her feelings for something.
Yeah, definitely.
She doesn't want to learn this good behavior that you want to teach her, right? You're trying so hard and you're such a good parent, but she doesn't want to learn that. She wants you to get something that she's trying to say.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I've spent so long trying to repress the thoughts. We kind of try to tackle just the surface level problem. You're throwing a tantrum. You need to stop throwing a tantrum. But there's definitely like the underlying cause of why this tantrum exists, anger exists.
Right. Yeah, I just want to catch that part, that you've tried so hard and have been so good about controlling her, but that doesn't really help in terms of why she is so upset, why she is so angry. It doesn't really help the core of it.
Yeah, thinking about it, back to the example with my brother having asthma.
Yeah.
For that rage underneath is the fear of not being able to protect him, because he does have asthma. He does need to be more careful than the average child. So when I see someone kind of disregarding that or not even paying attention, whether or not it's maliciously intended, there is that fear of my brother could have a panic attack, or he could have an asthma attack, or he could just see the smoke and assume that he's not being catered to and he's not being paid attention to. And because I don't know how to deal with that fear and that overarching fear that I think any sibling would have, and your sibling, my first instinct is just to go to rage, because it's the only way I can think of to deal with that fear.
Right. Yeah. It sounds like in that moment you're feeling a panic, and the rage is this panic that you're feeling of like, oh my God, what's going to happen here? And this asshole doesn't give a shit and endangering my brother. And there's a sense of urgency and a sense of immediacy of needing
that's
to
exactly
right
it.
the wrong. Yeah. So that,
especially when you were just saying like, oh, this asshole doesn't know what he's doing, that's the thought I'm having of just that anger that comes from, now that I'm reflecting on it, it comes from a place of fear of not being able to protect him.
Yes. So even as we're saying that, the angry voice gets fleshed out a little bit more, that it's a panicked child. And it's protective. It's not just angry to be destructive. It's not trying to destroy something. It's trying to protect something. And it's feeling very helpless and like an emergency. There's a kind of emergency feeling about it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, now that we're talking through it, it makes total sense. Even just applying that to other angry, intrusive thoughts I have, I think about it and I kind of go into myself and think about what the core of those thoughts is. It's fear born out of wanting to protect the things I love and not knowing how.
Yeah. So maybe that tantrum child is feeling helpless. And
that's exactly it.
Alone. kind of responsible somehow to protect and not being able to protect.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't even think about it, but I think I put a lot of pressure on myself to help my family and help provide for my family, because my brother does need so much more help, and there's just like so much going on in our family lives and in our personal lives, and I feel that I have to take on this responsibility because it's people that I love. No one externally is saying to me, you have to do this, but I feel like I have to. And when I can't perform to the standard that I set to myself, that's when that anger comes out, and that's when that fear builds up, and that's when it manifests as these thoughts that I don't want to have.
Yeah, I totally get that you feel like you're in this position where it's up to you to hold things together, and you desperately want to. You desperately want to be this grown-up for everybody, but then the kid in you is feeling like you can't do it. You can't protect them. And the anger is sort of like an explosion of helplessness and panic and rage at the whole situation of having to be responsible and not really being able to be.
Right, exactly. And it turns into this very base flight or fight response where I feel like I have to fight for the people that I love, and that instinct in and of itself is fine, but once it gets to the emotional moment of fight or flight, that's when it gets so violent and so dark and unsettling. But really reflecting on it and thinking of it, it just comes from a place of wanting to take care of the people that I love and just not always knowing how.
Absolutely. Not feeling like you're really in a position to make it all okay for your family.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Wanting to so much and feeling like you have to. Feeling like they can't take care of themselves, or that it's up to you.
Yeah. And I don't know exactly when I started putting this pressure on myself to kind of be the pillar of the family and kind of keep everyone together. And on the one hand, I love my family. Of course, I want to take care of them, but we can all support each other as much as we want. There's always going to be external factors that can come at us, and we're going to have to deal with that as a family. And I think what I need to do to address the core of these thoughts that are upsetting me and that are so violent and distressing is to try to come to terms with the fact that I can do everything I can for my family, and I won't always be able to protect them because that's life. And all I can do is be there for them in my capacity and accept the fact that, I can't always be the pillar. I have to look after myself too. And that's something that I can know intellectually, but I know is going to be so difficult for me to internalize.
Yes. I know what you mean. That's very wise. And as you say it sounds like, yes, of course, that makes perfect sense. But the little kid doesn't even hear that, can't take that in, and just feels urgent. Like, what will happen if you don't hold things together?
Yeah, exactly.
I think there's a feeling when you're talking about this, like, from the kid's point of view, if you are not perfect, if you're not strong and big and in control, that things are really going to fall apart.
Yeah, that's exactly, I feel like, because so many members of my family have been and still are going through so much. I feel like I have to be this pillar. But at the same time, I know, and again, I know intellectually that, like, my brother and my mother, they want to be there for me as much as I want to be there for them. And I know that they want this to be an equal giving structure of a family. But I also feel like, as someone who hasn't gone through as much as they have, that I need to be stronger, because they're the ones that are suffering and I'm not. So I have to take on that responsibility. And I think the struggle for me there is balancing, wanting to take care of my family versus putting the weight of the world on my shoulders, because I know I don't need to, but internally I feel like I do.
Yes, I see that. I'm going to ask you something just as a way of seeing how it feels as I ask you, just to see what comes for you. And I'm wondering if this tantrum child is sort of feeling like, well, what about me? Don't I count? How come I'm not being taken care of by Leslie? How come I have to learn to control the anger and be so grown up, and I can't do it all?
Yeah, I feel like that sums up my teen years quite well, because my brother was born when I was 15, so I really had to step up to the plate in terms of,
wow.
Yeah, looking after him, making sure that my mom was taking care of herself, because she worked so hard to provide for us, and I wanted to, ease that as much as I could. And I guess, once my brother was a little older and he could kind of look after himself, I never stepped back down. I never had that chance to kind of be taken care of, because it was, it was just my instinct to step up to the plate. And since then, I guess I've never stepped down. Wow. I didn't even think about that until you asked me that.
Well, that's such a wonderful image there, that when your brother was born and you were 15, you had to step up to the plate. It was a kind of emergency. Your mom wasn't taking care of herself, and here's this baby, and the baby has asthma. But then you never stepped down from the plate. So at the age of 15, it was like the world changed, and you never got the feeling again that it was legitimate for you to be the kid, for the kid inside you to be comforted or protected or understood. That kid was supposed to just grow up and be rational and be in control.
Yeah, wow. That's it exactly. I never got that chance to be that carefree, wild teen, because, and I definitely know now, not necessarily just tied to my brother, but in general, I know that, my childhood was very, very shortened by that. And I definitely know now that I've kind of taken steps to nurture my inner child, in terms of letting myself have more childish hobbies and doing things in a more creative way. But I never thought about it being tied to this rage and this fear that I have for my family. And that's
yes.
so interesting to think of how interconnected that is.
Yes. There was such a kind of liveliness when you were saying, I never got a chance to be wild and carefree, and I could sort of picture this Leslie that would be feeling a safe environment to be wild and carefree, and the longing for that.
Yeah, and there's definitely been bits and pieces of my life where I've gone on vacation or I've studied abroad, and I've had like a week here, a week there
right, a little taste of it.
Yeah,
yes.
and I try to savor that, because I know, especially now as I enter the adult world and get a 9 to 5, I may not get that full wild teen experience. So I think trying to make up for it and nurture my inner child in that way, I think would help that tantruming child that kind of feels like she never got, you know, that childhood, and that, you know, is just trying to look out for everyone, because I think the more I nurture that part of myself, the easier it's going to be for me to accept that, you know, my family is going to be, you know, just fine if I'm not always the adult.
Yes. So there's the part about sort of trying to give the child some freedom to be carefree and wild. And there's the part about sort of really deeply listening to the panic, because that child is also very frightened. I get the sense, actually, of the child being heartbroken about the brother with asthma, heartbroken about the mom, heartbroken about hard things that people you love are going through, and not being able to protect them, and not being able to make the world safe and good and free.
Yeah, that's definitely where a lot of the pressure I put on myself comes from. The fact that, you know, my brother is so sick, and the fact that he struggles, and the fact that, you know, my mother has to go through so much to make sure that we have a roof over our heads and that we're taken care of. But at the same time, I think I have to remember now that my brother has asthma, but he knows how to take his inhaler, and I think I have to internalize that my brother is not a baby anymore. He's a teenager. He knows how to take his inhaler. He knows how to watch out for his own symptoms. But I mean, he's my baby brother. He's always going to be my baby brother. But I think I also have to accept that he's not actually a baby anymore.
Right, that helps in a way. Let's just see for a minute if it helps when you remember that he's more grown up now, and that he knows how to take his inhaler, and that he's a little tougher than you imagine. And
I definitely, in the past few years, I've been more active in my brother's life in terms of his academics, and in terms of, you know, going to parent-teacher conferences when my mom can't. And I think to this day, it still surprises me when he, you know, runs into his friends, and instead of doing like a little kid wave, they do like the bro handshake thing. As teenagers do, and there's always that part of my brain that thinks he's growing up now. He does the bro handshake, and he your head, and all of these things that make him a complete thinking person. And that's, you know, and I know he's always going to be my baby brother to me, but I think I also have to accept that he is his own person, and in addition to, you know, being, you know, his own person with his own interests and his own hobbies, he's also his own person who can take care of himself if his big sister isn't there to yell at the guy with the cigarette in his hands. I have to trust. I have to start trusting that my brother will make the right decisions for himself.
How does the little kid in you feel when she sees your brother, you know, having fun with his friends and greeting his friends and being more grown up.
Yeah. And that definitely helps in terms of seeing him as his own person as opposed to just a child that needs to be taken care of. But I definitely think that's something I need to work on to internalize more, because there's so many things that I know intellectually but that are so hard for me to accept emotionally as truth.
Yeah. I think often we try so hard, you're so hardworking at internalizing things and putting things in the right perspective and telling yourself good things, wise things. But it might be harder to listen to ourselves and to hear what the self is trying to say to us and trying to make a place for that part's point of view. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is just going to take time, because I definitely know there have been times, in my younger years or just, through stages of my life, I definitely know that I've been worse. So I know that I'm getting better now, but I think I think I'm still hard on myself to be the best, to be perfect, and I have to accept that.
Yes.
I can never be the perfect pillar of the family, because each family member has to ultimately be responsible for themselves. And as much as I want to take on everything, there are things that they have to take on their own. And that means I can't get angry and I can't get upset when they, decide to fight their own demons, because I can't do that for them for everything.
Right, that they can pull their weight, that they can take care of themselves. And you are getting better, but you still feel like you have to be the best. And it's hard to give yourself permission. I wonder if you could right now, just for a moment, just give yourself permission to be, as well as being this pillar of the family that you are, to also be the tantruming kid, the scared kid, the panicked kid, the broken-hearted kid that feels really worried and sad and scared.
If I allow myself to go through that process, I know there's so many things that has just happened in my family that just that either have already happened, they can't be changed, or are in the process of being fixed, and now it's just a waiting game in terms of that. And there are so many unknown factors that are either out of my control or just out of control in general. I think to what you're saying, I think it's important to let myself be afraid and not sort of push aside for the anger.
Yes. To let me say that back to you, that to let yourself be afraid rather than just focusing on the anger. To give yourself permission to be afraid. To sort of acknowledge that there are things that are beyond your control and things that are worrisome, and that self is very worried and needs understanding and support for all of those worries.
I think definitely what I need to do is sort of, kind of kneel down, come to the level of the scared tantrum child, and sort of say, you have every right to be afraid, but talk to me. Tell me what you're afraid of. Tell
Yes.
me what's on your mind.
Yes, yes.
And I think that would be kind of the first step to addressing the more angry, violent thoughts. Because,
yes, yes.
There's that fear at the core, and that's what I need to address more than anything.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, this seems like a good place for us to stop this conversation, end this conversation, but I would really like to hear all of the things that this inner self is worried about and afraid of, and if you want to email me them, my email address, Zach will give it to you and everybody. Just email me the whole list of things that this self is worried about and scared of.
Yeah, because there is a list, and there's a lot of I think legitimate fears and
absolutely
things that are acceptable to be afraid of, and I just need to face them.
Right. Okay, it was very lovely to meet you, Leslie, and to meet this part of you too.
Yeah, likewise. This has been such a great, enlightening conversation in terms of interconnecting everything that I thought was separate issues, but it's really all tied together.
Yes. All different. I pictured as all these roads, but all part of you.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, bye for now.
Bye for now.
Awesome. Second, I'm coming in. Thank you so much, Leslie, for just contributing to all of us. One sec. One second. I think we can still be heard, but we can't be seen. 1 second. Oh, God. It's not a stream without technical difficulties, huh? That's not that. Okay, 1 second. Hey everybody. Just gonna angle this over. Yeah, just so grateful for everybody coming by today. Thank you so much, Leslie, for being so generous with yourself. Lynn, for bringing us into your home and just
it's lovely to have you here.
Sharing everything that you have to share with us. We're gonna keep experimenting with this series. I've already got some really great feedback from everybody. It sounds like a lot of you really got a lot of this conversation, and is definitely something I'll be hosting again.
Maybe we could invite people to write in about what they got from the conversation.
I would love to see that.
How they might relate to it. That might help Leslie also.
I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great?
The live chat, and I hear rumors that it'll eventually be here permanently, but it does, for now, at least as far as I'm aware. Definitely wait until the video isn't live to leave a comment below with what you think and what questions you have
and how you relate to this in your own life.
Exactly. We'll be back next month, and until then, we'll be here. I'll be sharing other stuff on this channel. We'll be back for self-care. We're back next on April 1st. It'll be the first Sunday of the month, every month, Self-Care Sunday from now on. And in the meantime, check out Lynn's channel. I'll put a link somewhere here and definitely in the description below. But yeah, until then, much love, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.